I was quoted $2,200 from a local seamless gutter company. When I heard that, I said, no way. Let me go to Home Depot and see how much it is to put in the 16-foot seamed gutters that they sell right there. I'm going to show you how to do that in this video, and I'm also going to give you a cost breakdown of how much did that actually cost me and how much did I save. Without further ado, let's dive right in. All right, so the first thing you're going to want to do is get a measurement for the side that you're working on. Now this house has gutters going around the entire circumference of the house, so I'm not going to need to use any of those left or right end caps. Now you'll want to be thinking about the direction of the water flow. The higher gutter will always sit on top of the lower gutter to minimize leaking, and I'll usually like to overlap these by 3 inches or so. Now to make that fit, you'll have to cut a little bit off of the top edge of the higher gutter, and when I do this, I usually cut in a little bit of a taper so that when I pull the 2 sections together, it'll force them to fit a little bit tighter, and I usually just use tin snips to cut that out. Now go ahead and get your gutter section started, but before I pull them together, I want to put down a pretty healthy bead of caulking. Right here I'm using this Amerimax gutter sealer that I got from Home Depot. So before you rivet, you'll want to make sure your gutter sections are as straight as possible. Use a long level like I have here, a string, a laser, it doesn't matter, just use whatever you have. You'll also want to block these up as needed so that they maintain their straightness. Check the back for straightness, and also you can use the old eyeball check. You'll see if that thing is crooked. So before I rivet, I'm going to take this C-clamp with a block of wood on the top and a block of wood on the bottom and give it a good squeeze. Then I'm also going to straighten out the caulk with either the caulk tube or whatever and keep that caulk as low as possible in the joint. Now I'm using these 1/8 inch aluminum rivets. I'm going to use 4 in the back and 4 in the front, and I'm going to keep them as high as possible in the joint, and that'll help prevent leaks right there. Now these outside corners go on the same way. This corner piece is higher, so it's going to go on top of the gutter section and overlap about 2 inches. I already did trim back the top section of that corner piece the way I did on the gutter earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and add some rivets to my corner piece, even though I'm not going to use as many as I did on the long section. Now these corner pieces do have seams, so you want to take some sealer and go around the inside and seal that up anywhere you think it can leak. Now if your gutter system uses end caps, like a left or right end cap, you'll want to seal those up as well. And to attach those, you can either use screws or rivets, or you can use a crimper tool if you don't want to look at the screws or rivets from the outside. Now for any extension that you might need to your gutter sections, don't forget to add the overlap amount to your gutter section, otherwise your whole section is going to wind up short. For me, that was about 3 inches. Now I'm just going to go ahead and use an angle grinder to cut the gutters. You'll want to make sure and deburr any cuts that you make. They'll fit much better. Now as far as hanger spacing, I'm spacing mine at about every 30 inches or so. Now if you live in a northern climate where you're prone to snow and ice, you might want to close that up to about every 24 inches. Now I'm using 3x4 downspout, so I'll just take the downspout outlet and center it up real good just where I want it and trace around it. Now I'm going to use a Dremel tool to cut this out right here, and then I'm going to go back with this grinder and clean up the corners. That way this downspout outlet will fit just perfect. They do make a punch-out tool for this if you want to go that route. That's a real time saver. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of sealer before I put my downspout outlet in there, and I'm just going to add a couple of screws. Now if you go back and cut the screw tips off where they come through the bottom, you won't have to look up and see that ugly mess right there. Now I've found that if you go back and caulk every seam, wherever the intersections are, the corners, I'm talking every seam with some high-quality white caulk, this really makes a difference on what this is going to look like, and then go back over the caulk with some gutter match paint. It's really going to look a lot more professional. So my gutter section here is about 40 feet long, and I'm going to have a drain at both ends, so I want to make the middle my high spot. Alright, so right here I'm going to take a scrap piece of gutter with the hangers installed and push it up under the drip edge about as high as I can get it and then mark it. Then I'm going to measure what I've got right there, whatever it is, and then I'm going to go to each end and subtract about 3/8 to 1/2 inch for every 10 feet of run that I've got there, and that'll establish my fall amount. And then I'll take a chalk line and go from the middle and to each end and snap a line right there. So since my gutter section is about 40 feet long, it's not really strong enough to hold itself up if I'm holding it from each end. So I've got this ladder right here with this board extending over so that I can rest the gutter on there, and that'll support the middle. So I'll just climb the ladder and get the board resting on the middle, that way I can get to the ends and attach them. Now I've already got a corner piece added to my back section here, and the current piece that I'm working on is higher, so it's going to overlap on top of my back corner piece. And yes, I forgot to add caulk to that, so I had to go back and add that later. Now I'll just bring the gutter up to my line and start driving in the hangers, making sure to stick to my line all the way down, and this will make sure the gutter is straight. If you're finding any value in this video, please click that like button below and subscribe to this channel. I come out with videos like this as often as I can. Okay, so back to the video. Alright, so if you notice, this has a crimped end right here and a non-crimped end right here. Now that's made to go inside or outside of your next fitting. So our gutter A connector is made the same way. We have a crimped end and a non-crimped end. Now you want to keep these inside of each other on the downhill. This is going to be the very bottom where it comes out at the ground. So this has to go inside of this, and it has to follow that all the way up. Now even if you're using the crimped end with the non-crimped end, it still might have a little bit of a tight fit. You can use a tool like this, a little crimper, and kind of help it along and give it some extra crimp. I'm just going to put a couple of screws in there and be done. Be sure to deburr all your cuts throughout the whole job. Alright, so here we have the custom sized piece that goes up against the wall, and here's the upper portion of it. So we're going to take our A connector, and again, because this is higher, this goes inside. Everything higher goes inside. We're not going to be adding any screws until I get it on the wall, in case it needs to adjust one way or the other. And here we have the custom cut piece that goes up under the eave. This is 17.5 inches for me. Yours is going to be a little bit different. Here's the seam. We got that facing the back so you don't see that. And here's my last adapter that goes up to the gutter itself. This is higher, so it goes inside. So I've got these downspout clips mounted to the concrete, nice and plumb underneath my drain. Just get it started at the top, and if need be, get somebody to hold it up while you get a couple of screws started. Now we can go ahead and start adding more screws, starting with your clips. And then add a couple of screws to each joint, making sure everything is nice and straight along the way. So our grand total was $780.90 at the time of this video. That's a savings of 65% over what the guy quoted me. No, they're not seamless gutters, and they don't look as good either, but they're $1,400 cheaper, so I think I can live with a couple of seams. Okay, I hope this video has been helpful. Thanks for watching.